consent agenda, if you would.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and Council. Your consent agenda includes several items, 13 items. The first item, B1, is the minutes from the January 2nd council meeting. Second item is minutes from the February 5th city council meeting. Item B3 is approval of an ordinance authorizing the sale, possession, and consumption of alcoholic beverages at Kevin Loftin Park for the RiverFest Foundation RiverFest event. That is on Saturday, May 18th, from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. The next item is B4, and that is approval of an ordinance authorizing the closing of streets and the sale, possession, and consumption of alcoholic beverages during the 2024 Friday Night Live concert series. And I did distribute at your desk a revised B4. It has a new map that shows the area partitioned off for the field option or the street option, whichever option these events are held, either at the field option or the street option. The first three events, May 3rd, May 17th, and May 31st, Friday Night Live concert series will be on South Main. And then the last three events, June 14th, June 28th, and July 4th, will be held in Stowe Park.
Miles, real quick on that one, but we do both, right, just as a contingency, because I remember one time there was like a rain out or something, and, okay.
And I'm assuming that if we end up using the upper field as scheduled those last 3 weeks, the streets are not in fact be closed. And that's it. No. Okay. Good. Yeah. Thank you, Sergeant.
The next item is also a change which I laid at your desk, and it's for the approval of an ordinance authorizing the closing of streets and the sale, possession, and consumption of alcoholic beverages during the 2024 Garibaldi Festival. I can't speak today. The date is April the 27th, from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. And I think they do have a rain date included for April 28th. That's the rain date. You also have a new map that's associated with this event, and it shows that the consumption area for alcohol is not the entire Stowe Park. It's the lower portion of Stowe Park, closer to Main Street.
And the street closures are the entire duration of the event rather than just 11 to 2.
That's correct.
Yes.
Thank you.
Renovation.
Agenda item B6 is an ordinance granting a franchise to Duke Energy Carolinas. Councilman Heffern did send in a few minor edits to the agreement, which I've discussed with Martha Wagner, that I'd share those with her after this meeting. This franchise grants permission to work on their lines within the city and city properties, sidewalks, provides assurances to continue with improvements to their facilities and grid enhancements. This does have to be passed at 2 regular meetings, and so that you'll see it again on the consent item in April for the second time. The next item, B7, is the remote participation policy amendment number 1. Councilman Heffern shared a few edits for this one as well that I'll include. But the main point of this amendment allows certain council members to attend closed sessions. The previous remote participation policy did not include that, and so we added that in to make sure that council members can be present during closed sessions. Item B8 is a petition requesting contiguous annexation and authorization for the city clerk to investigate sufficiency. It's for 4 parcels just north of Reflection Point, approximately 260 acres. Also included are exhibits. You have the signed annexation petition, and then you have the legal description identifying the property, and also a map as well. Item B9 is approval of an engagement letter engagement letters and contract to our auditors, Mark Starnes and Associates, for next fiscal year, or this fiscal year's audit for the City of Belmont TDA. B10 is a budget amendment for a plow truck for the Public Works Department. This item was included in the 23-24 CIP. In the 23-24 CIP, it did include that there was 2 trucks, the mini trash truck and a claw truck, that we would go out for debt financing, similar to the mini trash truck that was approved on February 5th at the council meeting, based on the budget amendment there. We recommended that we pay cash for this truck instead of taking out a loan for it. Item number B11 is another budget amendment for a street sweeper truck for our stormwater department. We do have an aging street sweeper, so this is going to be replacing that street sweeper. There's a lot of maintenance and costs that are associated with our current street sweeper. And this one allows multiple employees to operate it because it does not require a CDL. This will help out with our stormwater permit, given that we need to remove debris from curbs and the streets and keep it from entering the stormwater system and, of course, into our streams and lakes and rivers. Item B12 is a budget amendment for the city to contract with an engineering firm for $47,500 for potential bond upcoming. It's for Gannett Fleming Incorporated, and we'll be working with Gannett Fleming over the next several months to bring you all priorities to consider for potential bond. And item B13 is a budget amendment for street repairs on Julia Avenue. We did have some money inside of our power bill. This project is to pave the sections of streets on Julia Avenue that is aging. There's a portion of streets that between David Street and Greenwood Street on Julia that has newer asphalt, or maybe a couple years old. This project paves the rest of the area. We did have 2 bids. We asked for 3 bids. One contractor did not submit a bid. So this is a budget amendment to move forward with the paving for Julia Avenue. And I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor. Any questions?
Okay, at this time, does anyone have any questions regarding the items on the consent agenda?
I have 2, just real quick, and they're probably pretty straightforward. For the contract with Martin Starnes and Associates, I know every year, at least since I've been on council, we just kind of continuously approve the agreement with them. Is that something that we should look, I know it's like, what, $72,000, but is that something we should look and see if there's any other type of it, like cheaper? I mean, I don't know, obviously you don't want to give up the quality, but, I mean, is there opportunity there?
We did talk about that, and probably next year, we're going to go out for an RFP for firms. It's a little late in the game to go out right now, so we decided to go ahead and contract with Mark Starnes. If we go out for an RFP, Mark Starnes could still be the requested or provider that the city would like to use, but it's typical to go out for RFPs every 3 to 4 years once you have contracted with somebody for a period of time.
Perfect, I appreciate that. And then finally for me on the consent agenda, the 2 trucks that we're ordering, I remember those were part of the budget agreement, or the budget discussions, right, from the previous fiscal year?
Yes, the mini claw truck and then the mini trash truck, those 2 were inside the capital improvement program for last year.
Mm-hmm.
And it listed debt associated with those. Instead of debt financing, we wanted to go ahead and just pay for those with fund balance.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Yes, sir.
With respect to the annexation, I just wanted to make sure it was clear because the materials seemed inconsistent. I think the summary said it was non-contiguous. The actual document said it was contiguous. It seems to me it would be contiguous, but I just wanted to confirm that.
Great question. I don't know the answer whether any of our city property wants that. Typically, they can answer.
We would happily ask the city clerk to confirm this position, but it's our understanding that if it doesn't touch the actual corporate limits, even if it's a satellite location of the corporate limits, then it would be a non-contiguous annexation petition, is our understanding to date, but we would be happy to confirm throughout the vetting process.
Okay.
Just a clarification on this point too, because I believe this is the first one that has popped up. So Catherine and Charlie's been on board. This is just a standard process. We're not actually approving annexation. This is just so that the clerk can go through the due diligence process before bringing it to council. It's just a standard procedure, but it is not, we're not stamping to say we're annexing more property in the city.
And there'll be another one next month too. It's a 3-step process, culminating in the last one, which is when we actually do decide whether to. But thank you for that. The only other thing I'll add is I made a couple edits to the transportation bonds agreement with Gannett Fleming as well to correct some misspellings, including of the city manager's name.
White bread.
Yeah. So I made those edits in addition to the other documents that you mentioned.
Yes, sir.
All right, any other questions? Okay. All right, well, I will go ahead and call us to order for our regular meeting. And I would ask for the invocation. Jim, actually, we have someone here, I believe, to do that this evening. Is that right?
I don't know if he's here, Mayor.
Jason Price?
Jason Price here? It look like.
Okay, looks like you're pressing the service.
I guess it's my cross to bear, so to speak. Let's bow our heads and pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for the blessings that you've bestowed on us and our city. We ask that you grant us the wisdom and patience to guide us in our deliberations tonight, that we may transact business to the benefit of all residents of the city and make sound and wise policy decisions. And we ask all this in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Councilman Hill, would you read some pledge?
Yeah, absolutely.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, it looks like we have some recognitions here. Caromont Health Foundation check presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, Charter, and Council. See everyone. I'm Jennifer Church, Belmont Main Street DVDA Chair, and I'm here with our Belmont Main Street staff and our DVDA board members, and here was some exciting news for everyone. On September 30th, 2023, the Downtown Belmont Development Association, the DVDA, partnered with the City of Belmont and Belmont Travel and Tourism, and our many sponsors to host the inaugural 2023 Soundtracks Music Festival. We also partnered at this event with Caromont Health Foundation to provide breast cancer screenings for uninsured in Belmont and Gaston County. The DVDA donated all Soundtracks beverage garden tips from the festival, and our generous community once again responded with loving care that night with additional donations during the event. Right now, I'd like to take a moment to announce. Can you go ahead and check, please? A representative from Caromont Health, I think, is
Went to the wrong location.
Went to the wrong location. The Downtown Belmont Development Association is proud to present this check for $7,500 to Caromont Health Foundation to help support breast cancer screenings in our community.
Council members in with it.
Councilmember, would you like to
Yeah.
join us?
Hopefully Fran went to City Hall, so she's on the way here, she'll miss it,
Yeah.
but we can take a picture, it'd be some good publicity.
Thank you so much.
I believe I will make a motion to set the agenda if there are no further recognitions.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is set.
I will also make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the edits to the various agreements that I made.
Second.
All right, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Thank you. All right, moving on to our regular agenda. Item 1, we have public comment. Looks like we have 3 people signed up this evening to speak. When you come up, please state your name and your address. First person up is Barry Smith.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Barry Smith. I live at 792 Kingston Street, in Belmont Junction, born and raised. And I'm a veteran and a historian at Stowe Post 144 here in town. And I come before the council to show some concern for the Sloan's Ferry Bridge. It's the new design that's being made. The Sloan's Ferry Bridge, as it stands now, is a World War I memorial. The markings as such are on the ends, both ends of the bridge. That was shared monies from Mecklenburg and Gaston counties. The bridge was opened in 28 and finished in 33, and it is some brass plaques. I guess it's brass, but they've been there a long time, 6 foot long or so, curved with the foot of the bridge. And I'm just come before you guys and ladies, is to somehow preserve what's there now on the new bridge, or rebadge it somehow and keep those markings that's on it now at the Gaston County Museum or somewhere, but not to be scooped up with a bobcat and thrown back of a dump truck. So we're just concerned that memorials are not forgotten, and just if you have any influence at all with the designers, maybe get with Mecklenburg County or Charlotte Council or somebody, talk about make sure that they include that it is, or was, and should remain. I have stuff material I'll leave with you so you can see how all through the years it's been called a Memorial Bridge or a Soldier Bridge. So, thank you for listening, and if you can help us out, and if we need to go any further, we're glad to help.
Thank you for coming up with
Thank
that.
you so much, Barry.
I asked Miles, who would we reach out to that? Would that be DOT?
Yeah, it's DOT.
DOT. Can we make contact with them and let them know about this?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, that brings us up to our second public commenter, Chris Beck.
My name's Chris Beck. I live at 502 Julia, where the construction is going to take place. And I don't know the whole ordeal about what is going on, but I am concerned about widening it, okay? Because right now it's already a racetrack. And so I just want to say when you widen that road, you're going to make it a bigger racetrack. Because you're it don't matter what time of day you come through there, that the speeding goes on and on and on through there. You don't mean if it's 9 o'clock at night or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's just, it is a speeding zone, And while they're doing construction there, why don't they put, the rumble strips all the way across the streets to slow it down some? Not just, that way, the drivers won't go around it, the rumble strips like they have down there at the stop signs now, on both sides. And I'm talking about not just right where the rumble strips are now, I'm talking about all the way up Julia Avenue, to slow it down. And make it big enough so people who, that are driving on that street and is going to slow down. I'm not talking about 4 inches, I'm talking about 8 inches. Let's make it so, they can slow it down something, especially when they get down there to that curve on Julia, right past David. Yeah, 'cause y'all know it's true. I'm just here complaining about it. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Beck. Our third speaker this evening is Amanda Memrick.
My name's Amanda Memrick. I live at 104 Timber Ridge Road. Citizens have been coming before City Council since 2022 with valid concerns about the proposed Henry Chapel development. I wanted to remind City Council about these issues since some faces have changed. The proposed development is in a critical watershed and critical mineral area that could impact the groundwater of more than 100 neighboring private wells. Those in South Hill Estates, the Henry Chapel Road neighborhood, and those along Bowen Drive deserve to have their private drinking water wells preserved and protected. We may not be city residents, but we're your neighbors, colleagues, and friends. Adding more than 600 homes just off South Point Road would create public safety concerns on a 2-lane road that wasn't built to support this influx of traffic. At a minimum, this development would add 1,200 more cars onto South Point Road, which isn't scheduled for any state improvements in the next 9 years, according to the latest state traffic improvement plan through 2033. Can an ambulance reach a resident at the end of South Point Road if a medical emergency occurs during the morning rush? Can a fire engine weave through traffic to reach the end of the peninsula in enough time at high school dismissal? Belmont's population has increased and South Point Road is struggling to keep up. The city's population increased 45% from 2012 to 2022, with 16,379 residents. Traffic on South Point Road, south of the intersection of R.L. Stowe Boulevard, just south of Horsley Avenue, increased 21% during that same time frame. Further down South Point Road, the sections south of Canal Road to about 500 feet down Armstrong Road saw a 50% increase in average daily traffic from 2012 to 2022. Infrastructure needs to come before development. Examine whether this development is worth the risk to the residents and neighbors who already call Belmont home. The Planning and Zoning Board voted unanimously to deny this application. I encourage you to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
All right, that concludes our public comment portion. We will now move into item 2. Consider approval, comprehensive land use plan update contracts, Placervia, Kimley Horn, and Withers Ravenel.
Thank you, give me 1 second, I'm trying to, there we go. Perfect. Thank you, City Council. Before you tonight, we have a proposal, which I feel like is an exciting proposal to consider 3 simultaneous contracts for your consideration, all with the ultimate goal of really looking comprehensively as we look to update our comprehensive land use plan. Thank you. Okay. What staff has prepared in your packet is what we're calling our 3-pronged approach to looking at updating our comprehensive land use plan. And you can see that land use is in the center, but in order to understand what the future land use for the municipality should be, and not only our municipality, but also the areas surrounding us, it is important and imperative that we look at our transportation as well as our utility infrastructure to see what types of future land uses can be supported as we're doing all of that planning work. And so with that, we are asking for your consideration of 3 separate contracts to help inform this work. One, which is the main contract, is from Serbia and Min Design, which, as you may recall, was the selected contractor for updating our comprehensive land use plan by City Council. But in addition to that is a contract that would add in transportation, and that's being presented by Kim Leghorn, and another one that would help us look at our future capacity and infrastructure planning by Withers Ravenel. So the first contract I wanted to talk a little bit about this evening is the one that has been provided in your packet by Plus Serbia. And so just to kind of go over high level the scope that's included within that contract, there are multiple phases. One is project initiation, data gathering, going on a tour, looking to establish advisory committees, explore some grant opportunities, and then really getting into the review of the existing comprehensive land use plan and the regulatory framework that it's established within there to understand what all needs to be updated before we even go out to the community. The other step would be to analyze and update data that's available and or to capture data in consultation and collaboration with the consultants that are also proposed for your consideration this evening. To look at ways to visually prepare that information and to ultimately first understand, before we even talk about future land use, what are the existing conditions within our community today? And make sure that that's really laid out and that that's brought up to date. Again, our existing comprehensive land use plan was done in 2018, and so we know our community is changing, evolving, and growing, and we want to make sure that before we look at what our future holds, we understand what our current state is as a community, both with infrastructure, but also with land use and population, demographics, all of the factors that need to go into proper planning. After that stage is done, the scope of this contract includes community engagement, which would include from everything from the promotional materials to multiple opportunities for our residents, citizens, and our neighbors to engage in the process and share with us what their ideas and visions for the community would be. Then all of that information would be pulled together by the consultant to ultimately produce the needed comprehensive land use plan updates and make the revisions within the chapters of our existing plan that are necessary, and present a final document for your consideration and adoption. So I will not read this entire slide to you, but I would just say that what is prepared by the consultant is an update, but it is a comprehensive update that includes various categories of either updating or some new ones that we didn't have in the 2018 version, but that we have heard are priorities for the city of Belmont, its residents, and its elected officials. And so the list before you is what is currently included in the contract scope. If there's anything else that you can think of, certainly before the contract is finalized, we could add those in. But it does include some of the things that have become important in recent years, including shoreline regulations, historic preservation, mobility and transportation, as well as some of our parks and open space. So some of those things have been looked at before, but our goal is to be intentional here and look at them with a more focused lens moving forward in this proposed update. We also heard you loud and clear that community engagement is very important and vital, and staff agrees wholeheartedly. And so in this contract and in preparation of this contract, we have been working hand in hand with Plus Serbia to try to come up with a comprehensive community engagement package for your consideration that includes a separate project website that would be updated at each phase along the process, a project kickoff open house that would be citywide, where all hands would be on deck, including Plus Serbia, but also the other consultants here before you this evening. Then special character area workshops that are specifically located in various locations around our community. Walking tours of specific locations where additional input may be needed. Online surveys that would be open for an extended period of time so that folks had an opportunity to really engage and provide that feedback. Hosting of small group stakeholder meetings. A speakers forum that would be led by staff. So this would be the opportunity where if any neighborhood group, community group wanted to learn more about how to get plugged into this process, our staff would partner with the consultants. They would provide the materials, and staff would go out and meet with members of our community to share more about how to get plugged in and or how to provide feedback on any given step within the process. We would also do the same structure for community events, so anything that's already scheduled, whether that be through the police department or our Main Street team or any other group here within the Belmont community, we want to make sure that we're well represented and have a chance for folks to ask us questions, learn more, understand how to get plugged in. So we want to make sure that our proposal is well represented in that area as well. And then also, before they would propose an actual document, they would have another open house to review the draft and get feedback from the community, ultimately, before that final product is refined. There is also a quote in your packet that's optional and not included in your bottom line for an educational symposium type event. That would be part of the public engagement. Again, this is proposed as optional because the cost does range, and this would, however, provide an opportunity if there was someone or a group or organization that would like to sponsor something like this for us as a city. So it's not included in your contract, but again, we wanted to present with you a variety of ways that community engagement could be achieved as part of the comp plan update. So overall, the cost breakdown for Pleservia's contract is $175,000, and you can see the actual phase breakout of that on your screen here, and it's broken out in more detail in your agenda packet.
It's
And
more than it was originally, is that correct?
So the original RFP response provided by this applicant was for what had been budgeted within the fiscal year 23-24 year. And in consultation with them, as we were talking about what would be needed with collaboration and scope, yes, the cost did go up from the original RFP response. Also, I would say the scope also went up. And what is currently proposed before you tonight is that we got proposal responses for the RFP that exceeded the dollar amount that's presented before you this evening. So yes, it did go up. It would still not be the top response from the RFP submittals that we received.
And when was the RFP submitted?
Ooh, I do not have that exact date. It was at the end of last year, but I'm not sure the exact date.
So in a couple months, we found additional scope and.
We did. There was one consultant that we have as part of this presentation tonight that was not included in the RFP. And in understanding what our real need is, we have asked for Withers Ravenel to provide you a scope for your consideration this evening. That was not put in the RFP, but we thought that infrastructure and understanding the infrastructure as a component of future land use was an important piece of information and data that needed to be evaluated and at minimum needed to be brought to your attention to be evaluated. So I will say there have been some requests of staff above and beyond the RFP as well, based off of importance and how we felt we wanted to make sure we were looking at this holistically.
Would this require a budget amendment, or would it be that some of that cost would be incurred next budget year?
I've talked to our finance director about this, and yes, some of that would be anticipated to be covered next year. There are several options of how that could be structured from the finance side, whether the costs that were actually reserved this year are put back into the general fund and all of it is reserved next year, or it could be split between multiple fiscal years. But we are working hand in hand with finance to see how that cost allocation would best be split. We did ask about a project ordinance as well, but that's not the appropriate tool for this use, so we would work with finance to understand how to best and most appropriately split those costs between the two fiscal years.
Plus you have Withers Ravenel, which is mainly geared towards water and sewer infrastructure, and we're thinking about using the utility fund to pay for that portion of it.
Yeah, so that's a separate contract, but before we get going further on the other contracts, I wanted to briefly allow Pleservia a couple minutes to just introduce themselves, and then all of the consultants, we've asked them to introduce themselves to you, but then also be available for any questions you have at the end of the presentation. So I'm sure you may have some. If you will just write down any questions you have for Pleservia, we've kind of let them know that those will be towards the end of the full presentation. So, with that, I will introduce Michael Dunning and Dylan Herrick with Pleservia and Mid Design Collaborative.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. We've been before you before.
response. You asked when we sent the RP in, the response rather. RP was issued October 13th. We issued our response on the 22nd. And since then, we've been really engaged. We started right away with some of the things we call, the immediate deep dive into the issues, the conversations, the background on things that we need to get ready for if we are selected and awarded the contract to begin work right away. In fact, we're lamenting that we're not already underway. Tiffany did a fine job of explaining the scope additions. The RP was well written, it was very thorough. One of the best RPs that we've seen. We answered that in kind in terms of the scope and the fee that was commensurate with the RFP. But since then, over the past 5 months, we've really seen a number of things that you all, some of you specifically, have voiced as concerns. Public outreach being one of the major ones, making sure not just social media outreach that we had already proposed, but that we're personally out in front of as many people as possible. One of the things that stood out to us, frankly, the 2018 comp plan cites the number of folks that attended that entire process, and it's somewhere in the 200-person range. We need more folks to be a part of this. We need more folks to be involved. However that is, how we can get them here, meet them where they are, that is a huge part of what we will do, which is much more than just a rewrite of the comp plan. So there's multiple things like that we did discuss, have been discussing with staff and others since our original proposal was sent in, which is commensurate with the new fee that's been put forth. I'm an architect, urban planner, policymaker, been involved in projects like this and initiatives like this for 30 years or more. Been a Charlotte resident for all of that time. Watched Belmont grow. You're at a nexus of a lot of things that are about to happen, and we want you to be ready for that. This is Dylan Gary with Plus Urbia. We represent the team of Plus Urbia, Men Design, which are co-leads. MRB Group will be heading up the economic analysis part of this. And then we have John Anderson, who will be on the housing portion. And for continued support after we're done, the Center for Comprehensive Planning will be involved in that. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk more about that and answer any questions you have. Dylan, any additions to that?
Yeah, I would just say, nice to be with you all again. A little bit that makes us unique is our Charlotte experience, especially coming from Michael's perspective. Our firm, Plus Urbia, has worked a lot with form-based codes, like you guys have, kind of famously, so we're excited to get into that and are prepared for that. We have our passion for ergonomic documents. We notice your current 2018 comp plan is very graphically friendly. We think that makes it more accessible. We're planning to build on top of that. And then as far as things change, I believe it's on page 42 of that comprehensive land use plan agenda memo, but if you have specific interest in each line item and how that was adjusted for the final fee, you'll find some notes there, and we can use that as a basis for questions. So with that, thank you so much.
And they didn't use their slides, which is fine, but just bear with me while I flip through them real quick.
Yes,
It's a visual summary of what. Oh, here we go.
This was a previous design guidelines document that demonstrates our graphic abilities.
All right, the second contract in your packet this evening for your consideration has been provided by Kimley Horn, and this is specifically to look at transportation. So some background on this contract is that the city was awarded from NCDOT a planning grant for the development of a multimodal network plan last year. And staff was currently underway with the update of our pedestrian master plan at the time of this project award, with the full vision from staff to be able to build off of the pedestrian plan update and expand that out into the creation of a multimodal network plan. The multimodal network plan from NCDOT is limited in its scope, although it's broader than it used to be. It used to just be that you pick pedestrian or you pick bike, or you maybe could pick transit. This allows us to have a plan that holistically includes all three of those. But one of the things that it does not include within the parameters of the grant itself is the layer for roadways. And so staff understands that understanding transportation on our roadways is critical. And so we are proposing that instead of creating a new contract to handle that we work with Kimley Horn to build upon the existing contract that we were successfully able to help to offset costs with a grant. We ask them to provide us a cost to add roadways into their analysis. This would include utilizing the data that we've already seen from TIAs as part of that background data and analysis, but also include resulting recommendations for roadway projects that would be worth considering and help with prioritization of those. It would also be looking at those in, not in isolation, but also in collaboration with bike, ped, and transit solutions to help offset some of the highest pressure points that our community is facing as it relates to transportation with a holistic solution. All of this is currently being proposed to help feed directly into the comprehensive land use plan itself and to serve, instead of duplicating efforts, as the transportation section of our comprehensive land use plan update. So just a note in terms of how that would be coordinated, we have spoken with Kimley Horn and their representation to collaborate with Placervia as our comprehensive land use plan consultant on any community engagement event. So what you have before you includes their participation at those character area workshops that were included in Placervia's contract. And they are also prepared to coordinate on online surveys so that our residents aren't bombarded with multiple surveys from multiple entities, but rather can answer one survey holistically and express all of their ideas, concerns, or questions throughout this entire process. That information would then be filtered back to Kimley Horn, but Kimley Horn would be the one responsible for crafting all of those questions to Placervia then implementing and filtering those down again. The goal here is that we want to make sure that things are as accessible as possible for our community and let the consultants do the data management on the backside of that, rather than putting that burden on folks who are eager to share their thoughts and ideas. Kimley Horn is also prepared to coordinate with Withers Ravenel, who you will hear their proposal up next, on any relevant data that can be added into the proposed Lucid model, so that we can look at transportation infrastructure as an investment and look at its future needs and capacity when we're doing long-term capital improvement planning. So that's all buttoned up into the proposal from Kimley Horn presented here for you this evening for your consideration. And they do not have slides, but I would just say that I know you guys are used to seeing Brady's face. I would invite Matt up here from the planning side of Kimley Horn just to briefly introduce himself, and that way you know his face if you have any questions about that project.
Good evening. Thank you guys for letting me be here today. I apologize I'm not as good looking as Brady Finkley. But I'm excited to be here today, excited to be part of this process, coordinating with you all, with the city, the community, with Serbia, to do this work. So my name is Nat Hayward. I'm a transportation planner with Kimley Horn. Cut my teeth, focused on transportation planning throughout my entire career. Worked all across the Carolinas as well as all across the country. Places in and around the Charlotte region, communities just like Belmont, but also had the chance to work on large urban scale transportation plans in places like Seattle, Austin, DC. Obviously, these are places that are very different than Belmont, but it doesn't mean we can't pull some kind of innovative approaches that, where we see some similar challenges and issues, right? So we'll be drawing on a lot of that experience, from around the region that we have. So, like Tiffany said, we'll be leading kind of the transportation portion of the comprehensive plan, and really manifest itself as a few kind of key goals. So the first goal will be about identifying needs, right? Needs, challenges, what are opportunities, what are what are the issues that the community is experiencing, right? And we know that Belmont's not one thing, right? The needs of folks on the peninsula are different than downtown, are different than close up I-85, whatever that might be. And so we're going to, like Dylan and Mike said, community engagement is a huge part of that effort. So we want to do what we can to listen to the community, find those needs, and then use those to help build our recommendations in the plan. And so the next piece is really developing our strategy. The manifest itself, really snappy, I like to say, is the 3 Ps, right? It's projects, right? What are those actual improvements we're going to put on the ground that improve transportation network in our community for all different modes, roadway, bike ped, transit opportunities as well. Policy, programs, what are those things that don't necessarily manifest themselves as spatial project improvements, but that can make systemic, iterative improvement over time throughout the community. And then also prioritization, right? Which projects do we build first? Which policies do we implement first? What actions do we take first to actually get us that transportation vision that we've identified? And so all that coalesces together to build that transportation vision that, again, is based on the data analysis that we'll do as part of our foundational work. It's based on the community engagement, so that ideally when people see the recommendations of the transportation network, it's not a surprise, right? That's ultimately our goal, is that people should understand what's going to be there because we've brought them along as part of that journey and help kind of tell that story throughout. With that, I'm available here if there's any additional questions that you all have, and appreciate your time today. Thank you.
And the last contract that is being presented for your consideration this evening as a part of this effort is from Withers Ravenel, and this is specifically related to the infrastructure component. So I just wanted to share that when I know I mentioned the Lucid model earlier in the presentation, that really stands for Land Use Capital Investment Decision Model. And so Eddie Staley with Withers Ravenel is here to talk to you a little bit more about that tool since he created it. So I don't want to get into all of the specifics about that. I will let him do that for you. But staff actually originally learned from this in attending the APA North Carolina Planning Conference. And they shared in partnership with the city of Sanford this model that allowed for community to better align their land use plans with their actual ability to serve from an infrastructure perspective. And having a visual tool to be able to share that with council, but also with developers who are looking to say, hey, we maybe don't have capacity in this area, but maybe over here there is capacity, right? Or if you want to develop in this other area, right, here's what it's going to take to do that. And so we wanted to learn more, and so staff called Withers Ravenel and got some more information, and ultimately what you see is their proposal for introducing this into the city of Belmont to help us proactively understand this data as we're looking at future land use planning for our community. In talking with them, while their model for Sanford was specifically limited to sewer, for them they felt that they could confidently add a transportation modeling component as well, and we've asked them to do that within the proposal that's already included for your consideration this evening. They've also let us know that additional layers of information can be added later as data becomes available. So if we wanted to add in our water infrastructure, for instance, that's something this tool can be built upon. It's not just meant for use for the comprehensive land use plan itself, but by syncing it up, it'll allow this data analysis to be a part of the data to drive our comprehensive land use plan. This tool, however, would be for the city in perpetuity, so something that we can build upon and utilize ongoing once we have that investment made. So I will invite Eddie up to share more information about that, and then ultimately open up the floor for any questions you guys have about any of the contracts being presented.
Thanks a lot. My name is Eddie Staley. I'm the Chief Experience and Innovation Officer for Withers Ravenel. We are a 450-person firm located here in North Carolina, and I have been employed with the firm for over 20 years. My background is working with local government, solving complex issues for those past 30 years, primarily focusing in the water and wastewater, stormwater areas. Tiffany did a great job kind of explaining the purpose of the Lucid tool and the value that it provides to the communities that we serve. One of the key things to keep in mind when we're talking about land use planning and long-range planning, there's this tension between the ability to serve with water, sewer, all the infrastructure that's needed to support that development. And so where can we best align our ability to serve with our vision of our community? And so this is really providing that digital twin of how those two intersect. And so when you're making decisions about what developments are right for Belmont, it's being made based off data. Those are data-driven decisions. We understand the cost, the downstream impacts from those developments. Also from the data from Kimley Horn, what those transportation impacts are going to be. And realize those are not universal across the entire city. Geographic areas have different capabilities, different capacities that are remaining. And again, it puts it all into one nice, complete package that immediately allows us to basically circle an area and say, what if? What if we did this? What if we made a different decision? What would those impacts be? The other thing that we look at in sort of this kind of Venn diagram here of demand, invest, and timing. Understanding the timing as development comes in is really critical. You're going to have to make decisions about when is the right time to add capacity, maybe to the sewer line, to a pump station, to something else of that nature. When you make that decision, what is the right investment? Realize we can't just add 100 homes worth of capacity, right? We're going up to the next nominal pipe size, the next pump size. And so when we make that investment, is the investment going to buy us 1,000 more homes, or is it going to buy us 500 homes? What is the right investment, and when do we make that investment? And if we are going to make that investment, does it fully take advantage of the land use, and does it align with the density that we've applied? All this happens through just basically a mashup, if you will, of all the different layers that are out there, from transportation, water, sewer, stormwater, in this case here specifically sewer and transportation. Why are we focusing on those two specific infrastructure classes? Those have the most cost and have the greatest impact when looking at the cost of development. I used this in the Sanford workshop. By the way, this project was written up in the APWA Reporter, national magazine, back in January of last year. It's kind of become a model for a lot of communities out there to really understand how to make those really difficult decisions about development and those impacts. The other thing to realize is that when a development happens, particularly in the sewer system, it's not localized. That flow is going down to a pump station that may get lifted, and then to the gravity sewer again to another pump station that may go to another. And so all of these impacts are happening all the way downstream. So it's really important to understand what all those downstream impacts are, and ultimately what those costs are going to be. If you notice here, this is one of the models that kind of comes out. Everything that's highlighted in green here in the Sanford case is ultimately where we're going to have to make investments. Understanding the timing of that is really important as well. You've probably heard from a few of my colleagues. I believe we have completed a couple of asset inventory and assessment grants that really looked at your water and sewer capacity. And so as we look at this, if we are going to be doing rehabilitation or replacement of existing infrastructure, do we replace it like for like, a 10-inch for a 10-inch? Or does the land use tell us we should really be looking at upgrading to a 15-inch pipe to be able to handle the future flow that would be coming from our land use division? So those are just a couple of things to really talk about. There's several more slides here. Again, on the pump station side, this is included in here as well. But ultimately, it's about helping you make proactive decisions and understanding the overall cost and implications of that in a really useful digital twin. These are some screenshots here that I'll just kind of run through. But The other thing that's really nice is when a developer is coming in and saying, what if? Or I'm thinking about maybe doing something like this, and they're working with your planning department. The planning department can immediately circle those properties of interest and say, this is what the impact to our downstream infrastructure is going to be, and ultimately what those costs associated with that would be. Not that you can't do it here, that's still a decision, a financial decision on behalf of the developer, but we can also show, here's some other areas of opportunity where those costs are much lower and are less impactful to the city overall. So that, there's a lot more that we can go through. I'll just burn through these really quickly, but I really look forward to your questions and really diving into any areas of particular interest. Thank you for your time this evening, and I'll turn it back over to Tiffany.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Perfect. That was the end of my presentation, so I will just open it up to you all. I know that was a lot of information, so thank you for listening to that presentation, and we'll open up for any questions you have about any of the contracts before you this evening.
All right. I'm sure we have questions where we would like to begin.
Yeah, I'll just start, and this is, again, I know I keep reiterating this at each of these sessions, but just to understand that it's for the first contract. When we were talking about the scoping of it, you mentioned that they're gonna do kind of their initial pre-dive into the current existing comprehensive land use plan and then formulate kind of a summary, I believe was on that sheet. I just want to ensure, again, and I appreciate the consultants, but I don't want them to be leading the charge of the data that we're reviewing. This needs to be coming from the residents of the community.
Sure.
And they need to be the ones that are driving the topics to discuss. Because I can tell you right now, apartment complexes, high density, stuff like that is stuff we need to be focusing on, because I'm sure that's what the resident's gonna say. If something that seems to be kind of a common denominator that's constantly brought up and that's not in this, I'm gonna be very kind of frustrated, because again, this needs to be community driven.
Sure, and so housing is definitely one of those focus areas that we wanted to hit, and that includes all kinds of housing. It is not specifically, I know we've talked a lot about missing middle lately, but the housing component of this comp plan update is not limited to that. It will include that conversation. It'll also include very thoroughly density as it relates to housing, but also as it relates to all types of land uses, right? But we hear you loud and clear. That component will definitely talk about housing forms, density, and from everything from the smaller single family all the way up to the higher density uses and what is the most appropriate in the right areas for Belmont.
Okay, and then just to kind of follow up on there, just to kind of lay it out, I think it should start at the community level, get the data into the consultants, let them formulate that, and then it goes back to the community level to that's the way it's
Yes.
processing and kind of going
Yes.
in my mind.
That is the proposal. What we're talking about on the front end is the information that is not questions, right? It's like the census data, the population data that is already, it's not really an opinion-based type of data, it's that sort of thing.
Okay.
How we've annexed over time our land area now, but absolutely anything that is input-driven by the community that will not be compiled by the consultant without hearing from the community first.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The only other thing that I had in regards to the third contract into the water and sewer capacity and kind of looking at this, I just want to make sure we're not duplicating efforts, because did we not just do kind of a water and sewer study that we talked about at the retreat in regards to upcoming project? You get what I'm saying, or kind of leaning towards here? I just want to make sure we're okay, we just did the study, all right, now we're going to incorporate it again, so.
Yeah, my understanding, and I will let Eddie expand on this to make sure this is kind of goes planning to public works and bridges that gap, right? Is that information actually provided some of the data that allows for this model to actually be created and to then help to better inform decision making. So I will turn it over to Eddie to go in and answer that one for you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, an excellent concern, and to that point, we would not be able to build this model without those investments that were made. Those are foundational. So again, when we're looking at the sewer, that sewer model was really in one specific area of town, not the entire limits of the city. The AIAs were really just foundational of actually getting a data registry of where every manhole, all the assets are, overall condition rating of those, so we understand what is the expected remaining life of those. So all of that information that's been captured is ultimately needed and even to have this conversation about Lucy. So,
All right, thank you.
yeah.
Charlie, I'm just gonna go around the table.
Nothing from me, I was really in on it. I do want this to be community driven, so thank you for bringing that up. That was my biggest concern.
The only other thing I have with the agreement for Withers Ravenel, it's dated December 22nd, and it says it's valid for 60 days. I just want to make sure it's still valid.
It is still valid. We're very proactive and get ahead of it. So.
All right, thank you. That's all.
I probably say with Alex and Charlie, community-driven questions and that.
Yeah, I would agree with that. This is essentially a people's document. This is gonna tell us how they wanna see Belmont developed. So I would also concur with that assessment. But one question I wanna ask, I mean, what, $50,000, I think it was for community engagement, what does that look like?
Sure, so that is where, I tried to mention it on the other side, let me pull that. Give me a second, I'm gonna flip back through. The goal here was for that to really look like multiple different platforms, right? It would include in-person opportunities, it would include online opportunities. The in-person opportunities would be a mix of both whole citywide events, right? Those might be in this room, they could be in the new rec center, they could be in any other larger location throughout the city, but they would be citywide events. We understand that that date and time might not work for everybody, and so we don't want the conversation to stop there. So those character area workshops where there would be one in North Belmont, one in East End, one maybe in the Reed community, one along the peninsula, one maybe in downtown. While those are all in different areas to allow people to have something that's a little bit closer to where they live to interact, it would cover all of them. So what it would do is be maximized. So let's say somebody wasn't available on one particular day, and maybe it was the day I live on the peninsula, but I'm not available on the day of the peninsula. There are still 4 other opportunities for me to go and attend any one of those events scattered throughout the city to participate and provide that feedback. So that is how we intentionally had tried to structure those events to make sure that we weren't missing out on folks that wanted to participate, but understanding that everybody is really busy, right? And so I myself is busy. I don't want people to miss out because they're not available on the one date and time that something's offered. So we want to provide multiple opportunities to provide input on the exact same thing in order to make sure that we're accommodating that and really capturing and meeting people where they are. So that's why on the screen you'll see a mix. I would say that this is also a working document, right? We don't know what we don't know until we hear it from the community. So we have let the consultant, and been very candid with the consultant that is going to be a part of this. If we have a community event and we hear resounding things that are not currently in the scope, we're going to immediately go to the consultant and say, okay, we need to figure some stuff out here, right? Maybe we move something from here, maybe we do that, but we've got to listen to our community and respond accordingly in order to pull this document together. So these meetings are critical, but I would say that no one component of this is any more critical than the other. The open houses are great. The community area workshops are great. Some folks may be more comfortable just responding in the evenings online. That's great. Some people might say, I prefer a small group setting with my neighbors, and I don't really want to go to this big event, or maybe my voice is lost at a bigger event, right? We want to come to them and provide that opportunity as well. So my goal is, planning director, is to make sure that the doors are open for participation in any way possible. So if there's an idea out there of how to engage with the community that you do not see on this list, but you're hearing is a need, my door is always open. Please give me a call and let me know how we can reach people. Our goal is that our document is not going to be successful unless we reach a broad sweep of the entire community to make sure that every voice is represented. And those are not all voices that agree. If my community engagement has everyone that agrees, we have not done our job.
Just two more things real quick. Idea, suggestion, it was before my time on council, but Richard and Jim did this. the stint when they were going around to HOAs in the community.
Yes.
HOAs were willing, you guys did it in Haverfall when I lived there, I believe you guys went down to McLean too, and a few other places, just a suggestion, but real quick on the stakeholder meeting, so I don't know if this is the time to elaborate into that, but to maybe preface to say, what I don't want this to happen is the key stakeholders is a bunch of developers, because I don't
Sure.
consider them the key stakeholders when we're talking about a community-driven comprehensive land use plan. So I just want to kind of get that up front, as opposed to coming around at the back end.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden we have a bunch of developers, because sure, I'm sure they're going to tell us how they want us to write our codes, right? So this needs to be a community thing. So again,
Sure.
just kind of elaborate.
And I think you're absolutely right. And so, staff knows certain people in the community, you all know other people in the community, and the community knows other people in the community. They might be experts in some of these areas. And so we will work closely with the consultant to make sure that we are trying to figure out a way to identify the folks that are the ones that are going to best represent those voices as a part of these stakeholder groups. That will take collaboration and feedback from each and every one of you to make sure that the right people are represented. So staff will be committed to working closely with City Council to make sure that those groups are properly identified.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just to Alex's point, Jason and I served on the steering committee for the missing middle.
Yes.
And I think I agree with you, because that was a concern when I walked in there, very heavily weighted toward the development realty community. We had one citizen, maybe two on there that I can recall. So I mean, that is key. That's, again, that is the people's money, people's document. We're going to really need some broad representation on this.
Sure, and I just wanted to say, I heard you loud and clear when we went through that effort. That was not staff's intention on that effort. I understand how it looked and was received, and so we quickly were open to the suggestions and modified the group to make sure that we accommodated. The difference with that document was it was primarily related to code analysis and forms. This one is very clearly not that. This is really about vision, and vision comes from within the body of the community. So either way, heard you loud and clear on that, and we want to make intentional efforts to be more transparent and to make sure that we have the right representation on any groups moving forward.
I have one other question. I think I heard you say regarding Tinley Horn, looking at transportation, you were going to go back to previous TIAs and look at that data. How far back are you going to go? Because some of that data may or may not still be relevant depending on development and the age of the TIA.
Sure. So I would let the consultant speak to what the standard for that is. If that data is too old to be relevant to inform the work of today, it may not be utilized. But what it might be utilized is to see trends, right? So we started doing TIAs in 2017. And so some of those intersections where we have counts, we may have multiple counts, some from 2017 all the way up to current day. We can see trends in growth over that. So even though we might not want to utilize the 2017 data for what the current volumes are right now, it can be used to establish growth over time and traffic patterns over time. So we will defer to them on exactly how that's utilized, but working closely with them to make sure that the data is relevant and accurate.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I got just one. For the community events, what's the lead up time for notice for these? Do you give citizens a month, 2 weeks, a week?
The community gets a month, you get a day's notice.
So I would say that if we're doing a big citywide initiative, it should be at least a month. But I would say that my department, if somebody says, hey, I have an event in a week, can you be there? We're going to do everything we can to try to be there, right? If it's a requested event, we're going to do our best to make sure that we have representation there by at least one, if not multiple members of my team to be able to be there. But it really just depends on those events, whether it's an open house one. Some of the other community events are being led by other departments, right? Whether it's Main Street or police. And so I don't want to speak to their lead times on those, but our goal is to piggyback on anything that we are invited to participate in and make sure we have representation there.
Okay. Nothing else? All right. Thank you, Tiffany.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
All right, so we all have heard the presentations and read the proposal in the packet. I think we're looking for a motion on this.
Make a motion to approve all three contracts.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes, thank you. All right, moving on to item number 3, public hearing for Complete Kids at Belmont Middle School. I believe we are going to motion to continue the hearing and defer that until next month, is that correct?
Can I, sorry.
Complete Kids?
Yes,
Is it?
that is correct. It's a motion to continue 1 more month, and the applicant is prepared to come before you in April.
Okay.
Can I ask, just because this is the second time this has come on the agenda, is there any, like, reason or anything like that as to why this continues to get pushed back?
Sure, so after the planning board meeting, planning board had some questions, and staff went back and asked the applicant to really provide a response to the feedback that we heard from planning board. And so the applicant is wanting to make sure that they're able to provide a thorough response and also to coordinate, from our understanding, some shared use parking agreements. And so they've been actively working on that, and in order to make sure that they didn't rush agenda item for your consideration this evening, ask respectfully for 1 more month, if you would continue it 1 more month, and they are prepared to move forward in April.
But just to confirm, they are actively working with staff to come to a solution here in regards to whatever.
That is correct. Yes, they've been in coordination with the project planner, who's Jamie Lisi in our office, and providing regular updates.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll move to continue the public hearing until our April 1st regular meeting.
Second.
All right, motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes, hearing is continued. All right, brings us to item number 4, fiscal year 2023-24 budget amendment, ordinance number 12.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is the City Council dais renovation project. This project was approved in this year's budget under a CIP item. We did go through the design with a engineering and architecture firm, HDR. They did design the project. We opened bids. The bids came in for a total amount for a little bit over $358,197.78. The original budget for the project in this year's CIP is $116,499. I do want to point out a couple things that are associated with this overall project budget. The actual construction work was $162,940.76. This includes all the millwork, the cabinetry for the actual dais, the electrical raising of the floor. And then there was another second component, which was the AV work, audiovisual, that came in at $131,860.57. So that is all the audiovisual work to do with holding meetings in this space. The chair allowance is exactly what it is. It's an allowance for 10 chairs for the dais. Those chairs are priced at a maximum of $500 each. We don't anticipate them being that, but that is a number that we allow for them to go up to in the overall project budget. And then lastly, there's a contingency line item for 15% of the base bid, which comes out to $44,970.20. We did factor in 2 alternates in the project. Alternate number 1 was the addition of 3 cabinets. It'd be 1 cabinet up front and then 2 in the back corner of the dais. That alternate was priced at $13,426.25. Alternate number 2, we had hoped would be a deduct by changing out the countertops for the actual dais. It ended up not being a deduct, it was an add-on. So we were opting not to move forward from staff's perspective for alternate number 2. Bids are good for 60 days. And that is all the information I have at this time. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right, at this time, I'll open the floor to questions.
I think maybe just a comment here, and I don't want to speak for everybody, but I think it is definitely a sticker price shot for everybody. Again, kind of basing it off of the budget, starting at $116,000, and then moving up to $358,000 for some cabinets and chairs up here. For me, and my concern has always been, me and Miles have talked about this, is the technology and trying to get the broadcasting correct. My wife watches all of these meetings at home, God love her, and she'll text me sometimes, she'll say, I can't hear you, come speak into the mic a little bit more. So we do need to fix that. I'm going to go ahead and voice that I will not be voting for this proposal. I do believe that this is quite a large sum of money for what is intended. I do want to reiterate and just mention there was previous conversations in regards to a potential renovation project to City Hall, which is a building that needs renovation and is an asset to the city in our downtown Main Street, right in the heart of Belmont. There is a dais or whatever right there already for the council to use. That is something we quoted, and now we've quoted this. We now have both options to look at. Obviously, the previous quote and engineering architectural renderings have probably since changed since I believe a year ago. But we have done our due diligence. From my perspective, I believe this is too expensive. I'll shut my mouth now.
Anyone else?
I echo exactly what Alex just said. This is a very hefty price tag. I just don't see the need for it. And I know I might be in the minority in that, but I don't see what's wrong with what we have. It's working. Your wife watches the meetings. She might not be able to hear you at one point, but she'll be able to hear you most of the time.
When I get home.
Right. I just don't see the need in spending this money on this. It's currently working.
I fully agree.
Yeah.
I do agree with you though about the audio. My sister, she's partially deaf, and it's hard for her to hear it naturally, but you know, with Maddie not being able to hear it and she has her hearing, you know, I find that being an issue, but I'm not opposed to dabbling in City Hall because that's an asset for not only us, but for our citizens and community opportunities. So I think it would be something certainly we should look into a little bit further.
Because the project itself, it's kind of interesting. It's gone up and down, but the project of the renovation of City Hall is on the capital improvement plan.
Right.
At one point, it was number one, 2 years ago, and then it dropped down. So as we talked about at the retreat, coming up with some type of consistencies in regards to planning out our capital outlays. But it was at one point moved to...
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason.
Well, correct, yes, because someone decided
just
they
randomly happened.
wanted to move it as opposed to keeping it where it was.
No one decided that. We
Suggested.
we decided, we said we'd hold off while we figured out what was going on because we didn't want to do a bunch of renovations should something happen, but nothing has been, decided in that regard.
So it has gone up and down. The way I understand it, and maybe we can get an update from staff in regards to this, is it has a leaking roof. It has water that comes into the basement. I mean, it's got issues that need to be repaired regardless of what this decision is tonight.
Let me just say, if there are just comments, no questions for Jonathan, it's fine if you want to return.
Yeah, I mean, I just...
Jonathan, grab a chair.
I would just say no. I mean, I just want to make sure, I think we're all sort of aligned on this. But no one, this isn't to cast anything towards staff or Jonathan or anything. No one said, hey, Miles, hey, Jonathan, let's go spend $340,000 on a dais. I think there was, discussion, and certainly we've heard from people in attendance that they can't see us sometimes when they're in the back of the room where there's a crowded meeting. I know that other people have said that they can't hear others. No, everyone seems to be able to hear me. But
you're an attorney.
Yes, that's true. But I mean, I think the impetus is there certainly with the audio, and we, it was a project that was under consideration. We put it out for bids. The bids came back. They were, too steep, I think, for any of our tastes, and we're going to, I think, vote accordingly in just a little bit. But that's what we explored it. It's not a good option. I'll leave the whatever we want to do at City Hall, or I'll leave that discussion for another day. The issue before us is this budget amendment, and I would agree that we should not approve it.
Well, let me,
Just one thing to add to Jim's point, this is not at staff directed at all. This predated actually Miles and Jonathan, this project. So I do want to make that very clear, that this wasn't Miles coming in here saying, let's build this nice dais. This is something that's been on the books for a while, and now we know. We got 2 bids. I believe when we did the City Hall, just as a reference, there was like 10 or 12 folks came in here to try to get that bid. So it just so happens I had a question from the public, why did we select who we selected in this? And I said, well, we didn't. They just won the bid process, and it just so happened two folks or 2 different companies decided to bid on this. So I just want to make that clear that it's just how the process untangled, I guess. Now I'm done.
well, the only thing I would add is, we're in this building because of COVID, because of the COVID protocols. This room is larger. I mean, this room functions like a temporary room, which it was intended to be. But you're right, I believe we exercised our due diligence in getting 2 quotes. I would agree that this quote is high for what we need, particularly since we have a dais and we have a city hall. And we have a quote that needs to be updated for some needed renovations, because there is some deferred maintenance there. And we need to maintain our assets, which also includes our building. That being said, Jim is correct. We could go down a bunch of rabbit holes here, but what we have before us is this presentation, and this is going to require, I believe, a motion.
So motion to reject agenda item C4.
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. In favor of rejecting, of denying.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. All right, thank you for that. Moving on, we have food trucks, item number 5. Food trucks in city parks during events. Looks like Zips, will be presenting.
Good afternoon, everyone. Before you, in your package, you have a food truck policy. Give you a little bit of history on this. We did have citizens and certain vendors asking us to, if they allow food trucks some of our games. Oh, okay. So we did have people reaching out to us wanting to do vendors at some of our games and stuff like that. So we met with staff and got staff together and created this policy. The staff consisted of some of the fire, planning and zoning, and the police department. So we came up with this policy, and that's what you have before you in your packet. And to give you some more history of some of the guidelines that we had, we decided to go in with an RFQ, request for qualifications. And that qualifications, it will allow us to do certain criteria. And what you have before you is what you have on the screen here. Right now, what we did have, we did not have a policy in the city for the parks. We had one for the streets and we had one for private property. So we had to come up with this policy in order to have one just for the parks. So again, that's what you have in your package. Move forward. So we decided to go with this request for qualifications, and here are some of the benefits of a request for qualifications. We can be able to see what experience the vendors have, customer satisfaction, and availability of the vendors. So that's why we went for a request for qualifications. Also, we'll be able to have a database of future vendors, and in the future, we need somebody else to come out for some of these events. And also, it'll give us a criteria to be able to judge who we want to have at these locations. And this is some of the parks that we'll be able to have some of those vendors. This is mainly the 3 of the main sites that the vendors will request, which is again, of our soccer complex. Kevin Loftin Park, where we have a lot of people that visit that site all the time. And also Davis Park, where we'll be having softball and baseball games. And this is all the locations that we'll try to have vendors that they requested. So we'll be putting out an RFQ to the citizens. We'll get that input, they call us for questions. We'll send them an application. They'll respond back to us. And the recreation department or the staff will meet and we decide what people that we want to interview. And that's how the process will be done in selecting a vendor for these different sites. A vendor can have one site and then have all multiple sites. application is $75. We did not discuss, the possibility of soliciting any more funds for the vendors. Some people require that you do a 10% of the profits. We thought that would be very hard, but really that's about the only way we can do it, because we do not have staff to do a lot of other ways to be able to collect any of the fees. So if you have any questions.
Well, I have some questions. So I did submit some edits to the application to Miles, and did you have, there's some legal language here, did you have the city attorney look at that to see whether it's...
No, I did not.
All right, well, I think we should have Parks look at it, but I just want to make sure I understand some of these things here. This $75 fee, so that's like, if I can make an analogy, that's sort of like, as I understood it, when I go to Wake Forest football games, I have to pay a fee just to be eligible to buy the license that makes me eligible to buy the tickets where I sit. So this is $75. You're not guaranteed you're going to be anywhere. You just have to pay $75 for the to be eligible to be considered to go into a park. Is that correct?
Correct, but to go back to that though, first of all, these vendors, they would have to have three things in place. You would have to have something from the fire department already, from DMV, from the health department. So you would already have some investment in this.
Well, I understand that. That's, I mean,
Right.
but you know the question. So you could pay the $75, but you're not guaranteed that you're actually going to be in a park
Correct.
with your food truck.
Correct.
That's just okay. Is this restricted to only citizens of Belmont that have food trucks, or is
Anybody can apply.
Okay. So I'm trying to figure out, in terms of what you're allowing them to do, are you giving a vendor an exclusive right in a park to just like plop themselves down there at all days and times? Or is this only going to be in connection with designated park events? How does that all work?
It will be designated events, like we have games, they will be able to come down to the games, that one food truck for that.
And then is that going to be up for each specific event? It could be someone different, or does somebody I get at Gant, so anytime there's an event there, I can bring my food truck there, and how does that work?
That would be, for instance, like we have our soccer program getting ready to start, so that would be for the fall and for the spring. So that would be actually for 1 year, but it would be event driven. So you'd be in the venue, bring your truck down for those events on that day that we have games, not the whole day park down there.
Right. But so each event you see, so you bid on the. So
Why don't we do, and I think this is urgent, why don't we just do first come, first serve? Submit your application, if you're the first one to submit an application to go down here during the soccer field or the soccer game. I also don't understand the pre-approved, so if I own a food truck, which I don't,
Okay.
and there's a soccer match going on this Saturday or something, and today's Monday, and I submit an application, I've got all my prerequisites that you're requiring, and I'm first one to ask, why did I not just get to allow to set up during that Saturday?
I mean, how do we know we the first to ask? Because they could do multiple calls and call multiple one of the staff to.
Can we create an online survey or online application form?
Yes, you could do, just like you're talking about, like a vendor application process, or you could do the RFQ. And so I think Zip's thinking like the RFQ is the route he wants to go. But you could do, if you all would prefer the application process first.
Sorry, Jim, I didn't.
I'm fine with it in theory, but I'm trying to figure out how it's going to play out. So, like, let's say there's soccer at Gant. Like, there's let's just say it's soccer league. There's it's a 7-game schedule, 7 straight weeks. There's going to be games Saturday morning at Gant.
Right.
Like, so what do you do? Do you say like, all right, food truck burger guy, you get to go Saturday, September 16th. does that mean that then somebody else gets to go up for bid during the next week's games? Like, what are they getting, and how do you
The
determine?
one vendor would have that option to be able to do it for the whole entire year, so I just not mentioned fall and spring. They'll be able to come to every single
All right,
game.
so we are dividing up by, so burger guy gets Ev Gant, pizza guy gets Kevin Loftin. Any event that goes on, you get that, you can come and sit up there.
It's kind of the way you develop the RFQ too, so you could state inside the RFQ that it's only for soccer season from like this point to this
Mhm.
point. And you would appoint one person to be that vendor for those soccer events.
Mhm.
You could also qualify inside your RFQ to state that you're looking for a healthy option, a protein option, a fry option, an ice cream option, whatever you want to do to make sure like you're trying to get that.
But it's only one, and
There's only
it's
one, yes.
gonna be decided, and they're gonna know, like, there's gonna be a set schedule, like X time in advance. They know each of these are the times that we're.
Correct. It'll be based on us.
I actually own a food truck, and I thought maybe a little insight could help on my end. I think that I did want to ask about the permit part, and this may be to Chief Falls. I'm not sure. I solely sell lemonade, and if I have packaged food that has a nutrition label on the back, I do not have to carry a permit within the state, within the city, through the Department of Agriculture. So people like me, for instance, because I do not have to have a permit on hand, which I have proof because I've been in contact with Jamie Lacey with all this because I'm a rule follower. But for people like me, how do I apply? And I did ask Parks if it was okay if I speak on this, because I'm not going to be the only one that would be someone that didn't have to hold a permit, someone that maybe sells ice cream, someone that sells popsicles. You have popsicle food trucks, you have, I don't want to say Kona Ice, but that type of food truck. What is protocol with that if you don't have to carry a permit, but you're requesting a permit? Do I call the fire department and then you just feel maybe you can help with that?
Yeah, I know the fire department has to be involved in that, or maybe in the police department.
And then I have a recommendation possibly for the rotation that I'll speak about.
That's a good question. All the events that we have downtown, it's not necessarily registration. It's just being signed up with the county health department. All of the events that we have, where we have food trucks, we submit a list to the county health department. They verify that those food trucks are registered at the county health department. And so we kind of classify them in two ways. We have food and then we have treats. And so it's good to kind of separate so that you don't have one and maybe you just have an ice cream where somebody shows up, they're wanting a burger. But so it's less about, it's basically just getting registered with the county health department.
Okay, so I would need to go and get registered with the
county health department.
because they were not interested in that. So I'll double check on that. That's no problem. This was just for me.
Let me ask a follow-up question real quick, because I'm not sure I understood. I think you said you're gonna go first come, first serve.
No,
That's what I did.
I think for me personally, and as a business owner of a food truck, a lemonade horse trailer, I have booked events throughout the year already for 2024. So for me to submit an application to just get on a list, like say, all right, I'm going to accept 20 food truck options, maybe 10 food, 10 sweet treat options or drinks, what have you. And then those literally are on rotation, and you call 1 through 20, and if one can't do it and they're booked, you call number 2, and you just rotate through that, and there's no rhyme or reason. It should, it's not.
That's similarly how we do our Friday Night Live concert
Right.
series. We put out our event date, allow them to sign up for the dates that they would like, and we vet them. We make sure that that they're registered with the Gaston County Health Department. But then we evaluate the options that they provide, and we make sure that we try not to duplicate or select someone that's going to compete with one of our downtown food businesses already. And then we allow them to set up, and we create a schedule, and they show up at their designated event, and that's when they pay their $75. So developing a schedule, because if you have one, what happens if if they're not able to show up for that game, and then you have no backups?
Right.
So having a schedule would be a good way to go.
Just before you leave, I have a question, more. In just reading through the packet and the different regulation of different areas, how is it handled? I saw the ordinance about the streets, and you generally can't do it on the streets. How do we handle it when we close the street, like Friday Night Live, because there's food trucks there? What's the mechanism that allows that to happen?
Okay, I'm not understanding the question.
So, well, I was just confused when I read the packet, no person, it seems like you can't set up a food truck on city streets, generally speaking, is that correct?
Through the city code.
Through the city code, public food vendor can't set up in a public parking spot
Okay.
just to sell, unless it's at an event where they're invited by us and they pay their fee to come.
Okay, that answers my question. I was just like, how is that, because I know I've seen food trucks on the street when it's closed off for Friday Night Live,
That's at a city-sponsored, a city event.
that was,
Correct.
parks. I don't mean to be difficult, but in light of some of the discussion, and I know my esteemed colleague has said she spoke to you, are we needing a recusal, or?
I don't, there's a difference if she was being awarded some kind of thing rather than just establishing a policy here. So I'm more comfortable with her being able to participate in the discussions to set up a procedure and a policy. If it was a more direct impact on her, I would have a different answer.
All right, and I don't want to cause trouble, but,
That's good.
we just want to be clear about that.
And I did want just one other thing, and this was pre-council, but on where it says that we need to obtain prior approval with Parks and Recreation Department, events coordinator, or other city designee. When it says events coordinator, me as a citizen, I didn't know, oh, hey, I need to call Phil or Cassidy. That's not what I'm thinking. So if Beltique throws a boutique situation, or Gigi's, or the Collective, or let's say that the Honeycomb threw something and they were the coordinator of this specific event that involved several other businesses. To me, in my knowledge as a business owner, that's the event coordinator. I think maybe we should be more specific on that and say Cassidy and Phil, make it so that there is permission from, or city staff, that
All
maybe
right, that
better.
might, because staff could change, then you'd have to amend,
Right,
if,
city
heaven
staff.
forbid, then, all of a sudden you gotta amend your permit, because you named them,
Sure.
Well, we could be very specific with the title of the City of Belmont's Community Events.
There you go.
Yes.
I think that would be great. Totally.
Just a couple of questions, are there any more from the council?
I'm still stuck at why we don't just do the application process of first come, first serve. I mean, I get hung up on
That's easy.
us predetermining a select list of vendors and then us having to now answer to those vendors, why did I not get picked? It's easy for me to say, well, you didn't submit your application in on time versus you saying, well, you didn't make the select list for this year. So I feel to be more equitable and fair, just open up the application if they meet the qualifications. There you go, you've got a vendor at Gant Park or something like that. That's what I'm getting hung up on.
I think the only issue I would have with that, and I don't know if it's an issue or not, how it would play out is, what if she said, Kona Ice or ice cream truck is the first one to apply. Because I think part of the goal here for the folks who attend these games at Gant, whether it's morning or afternoon, I've been in that situation where I've had 2 or 3 kids playing soccer, where I'm there from 8 till 1 o'clock, and I can't leave, and I'm looking for something like a hot dog or a hamburger. So that would be the only concern I have, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, not looking for ice cream. I might be in the afternoon after something a little more substantial. I mean, is that an issue, or am I just creating one that's not present? If you go that route, first come, first serve.
Yeah, it would be an issue.
I feel like with the RFQ, we'll have more leeway and they decide what vendors are gonna be down there and exactly what they're gonna be serving. Because our RFQ, you therefore to be able to check out the vendor board and exactly what they're serving. When you do the first come, first serve, you don't know really what you're gonna be getting. Because it's gonna be first come, first serve, in my opinion.
That is true.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's true.
And that's why I went with the RFQ.
Well, let me ask one other question, because we promote our local businesses. We're always telling people buy local, shop downtown, support our local folks. Why wouldn't we give preference to local vendors?
I mean, we could, that's your preference, we could.
Outside of Catherine's, I know of quite a few folks who have their own local side, food trucks and stuff that live in town.
That would be no problem.
If there's a big process, you can qualify that.
That would be my only suggestion, is to prioritize the
Local.
local businesses first and foremost.
Hey, who created policy? Was this Park and Rec Board that came up with this?
No, this is, like I said, the police, fire, and planning and zoning, and also, Main Street.
All right, and this, I don't know if this again is an issue, but it occurred to me when I see one truck per park, because I have noticed at events, there's an exclusion here for Stowe Park for multiple trucks. However, I have seen events at Kevin Loftin Park, we have 3 or 4 trucks. By adopting this policy, is that going to then reduce that number to 1? Like we have RiverFest, they have 3, 4 trucks there.
I mean, this actually could be a special request for special events. It's not talking about really about special events. It's more geared towards the athletics portion of our events that we have. That's where we get the cost for the vendors at.
Okay.
And we're thinking through like the number of spaces, so if you have like multiple food trucks, we're like, they probably would take up 3 spaces, and we didn't like have 3 or 4 food trucks taking up the entire parking lot, so that's really why we scale it down, don't have that one food truck.
Fair.
That's a good point.
Fair.
I mean, I get that, I mean, that would be the only part other than that, yeah, that might be able to accommodate
For
more
like
than
a
one
special
truck.
event.
But you're right, it does take up parking for a special event. All right, all of that being said, are there any more questions? Okay.
Is this strictly for parks, or is this for athletic fields?
But parks is part of our athletic.
Like, I didn't see, like, I know my son played rec soccer at Belmont Central on their baseball field.
That's
included
one,
in that?
that's included,
Okay.
yes, sir.
All right.
So my understanding is I need to, we change some of this stuff and then give it to the city attorney to give to review, and come back to you guys.
There were some edits from,
Yeah.
that we'll share with you.
Okay.
Well, actually, I don't see Belmont Central on the list, and I'm not surprised I don't, because, you know, that's not our, that's the Board of Education, so I'm not sure how we'd be able to, allow it, because it would not be ours to allow.
Well, we not lease that from the Board of Education?
It's just a gentleman's agreement on that, so I probably just have to run it through the Gaston County Parks and Recreation Department. So they haven't said anything, county on that park facility.
Based on it right now, we would not put them there, based on what he's proposing, because Belmont Central is not listed like you're saying, item number 2.
So maybe whoever makes the motion with the addition of Belmont Central pending the county's approval. Jim, is that giving you a headache?
I still think it needs to be fleshed out a little bit more, but, you know, I'm not opposed in principle to the idea.
What we could do is make the changes, bring it back to you all, maybe even create like an RFQ, if you'd like for us to go that process, do the RFQ, maybe have a sample RFQ to share with you and bring it back if you're more comfortable with that point.
Well, Belmont Central, I mean, if we are leasing it, you say we don't have a formal lease, it's just a gentleman's
No, it's
agreement.
just gentleman's agreement, correct, and that's been going on since 2013.
I would, if we don't have anything formalized, I personally would shy away from doing anything with Belmont Central.
Yeah. I've been involved in a lot of litigation on gentlemen's agreements, so,
Okay, I think I'm fine with that. Charlie?
You leave off Belmont Central, is that quicker?
It's not on there currently.
I know, so I have that, I'm just making sure my notes are.
We couldn't do it on the street, almost, like, street is that back there?
I don't think our policy allows for trucks to park.
Well, then we go back to the
Special event.
Yeah, based on the city code of ordinances, we can't have a food truck on the street.
I think if we make the changes and by bringing it back, I think it would be fine to put it on the consent agenda. And then if anyone has issues with it, then, we can feel free to pull it off. But, I don't, we belabored this for a while. So I don't think we need to belabor it at another meeting, but.
Or just move forward with it, not bring it back.
Well, that's true.
I'm good with that.
I mean, we've discussed it, right? I
Yes.
mean, I'm
So,
okay with
I'm gonna
keeping
call-
Belmont Central.
I'm gonna call the question and ask for a motion.
Motion to approve is presented.
I'll second.
Motion,
Hold on. As presented, you don't want any changes then? Just,
Well, we're not adding Belmont Central.
we're not
Yeah.
adding Belmont Central.
No.
The process.
There are some edits, yes.
And then
Mhm.
the clarification of what staff member, correct?
That's
Yes.
There are those the three.
Okay,
Make
yes,
sure
we
that-
want to change the title, okay, yeah, the description of the staff member and who you reach out to needs to be the official city title. What other edits are we,
Oh, it's just like, changing, there's a couple
stuff that you sent over? right?
Yeah,
Yes.
nothing
staff has
substantive.
those edits, correct?
Yeah, I have them right here if you want me to read them out to you.
One of it was like, talking about the permit, it was like, well, you had to display the permit, so I said, no, you need to.
I was gonna say, are they substantial or operative? or
No, they're
just
not operative.
Cleaning it up? 'cause
Yeah, it's just cleaning it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so the question's been called, and I think we have the beginnings of a motion.
Motion to approve with Jim's edits, along with the adjustment to include the city's representative's title when, in the description when submitting the application. I guess it would be on the application itself. Yes, I make that motion.
Would you want to add that we would prioritize local businesses?
Motion to also prioritize local businesses.
Yeah, so if you want to review those.
Yeah. It's only 2 pages per.
Yeah.
He's like, take
All
it.
right, so just to review, I
Here
have
comes Phil.
prioritize local.
I was just putting it on the consent agenda at the next one.
No, I was just wanting for clarity, I was addressing a question that about a general event downtown as far as community, contacting the community events coordinator. But for this policy, they would need to contact the Parks and Recreation staff, not the community events coordinator.
Right.
So that's what,
So in my notes, I put specify specific employee. I didn't put.
Good, thank you,
Yes,
Bill.
so whatever employee that is. So I have, prioritize local vendors, specify specific employee, edit from Tim, and reviewed by the city attorney. Is there anything else that,
And local, did you say local businesses?
yes, is there anything else that I missed? Just want to make sure the minutes are correct.
All right, that sounds correct. We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes our regular agenda items. We are now moving into reports. I think that everyone has read those reports. I don't know if there's any commentary by city manager on those reports. Okay, then we will now move into other business. Alex, you want to lead off?
Yeah, I will. I do have a few things. So I was at an event this past weekend, and I bumped into a family friend, Perry Johnson. He used to own Dock Masters, the folks that used to do docks out here on Lake Wiley. He sold the business, but he's still actively involved in the Lake Wiley Marine Commission. And they had a meeting that came up, and it was circulated quite loudly that Gaston County, particularly, which we've discussed in the past, and Belmont specifically, have subpar text amendments when it comes to, or text coming to our watershed and our protections that we're doing with the two rivers that we sit between, the South Fork and the Catawba River. So we've discussed this at the retreat, we've discussed it a few times. I'd like to maybe try to pencil in an agenda item coming up, if the rest of council agrees. I'm trying to go ahead and pursuing putting a little bit more beef to our current code in regards to the watershed, and along with regulations in regards to development on waterways or in critical watersheds. So just wanted to bring that up. Other thing too, so I mentioned it to Tiffany, just wanted to give a heads up to the rest of staff, or excuse me, the rest of the council. I sent an email. The Imperial Loft, the development that's next to the Masonic Lodge, I believe once again that they, again, this is my opinion, that we're gonna figure this out, that they are over their site plan, more onto the Belmont Masonic Lodge's property again. For Charlie and Catherine's purpose, when they first put their footings, they were actually over their site plan, and we had to make them move it to be in compliance to what was approved. So I, again, personally believe they're over it again by just eye checking it. I did have a quick question. I noticed they put signs up and then quickly removed them. Was that is there a reason behind that? So for the individual businesses, there were signs, and then now there are no longer signs up. I didn't know if that was our doing or if that was their doing, so that's where my question's coming from.
I'm not aware of any reasoning that they removed their signs. I know that we have not yet issued our certificates of zoning compliance, so I'm not sure if it's related to not having a business in that space yet or not. But I have no knowledge from our department of any communications where we require those signs to be removed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Just curious if that was something that they didn't. Second of all, just to kind of touch on this, did we get any additional information in regards to the parking with Elevation Church on Sundays? I believe I saw something that they added additional parking spots, is that correct?
They did on the backside where the concrete parking lot is. I went out and met with Preston Wilson, and he added more gravel lots around the outside. I picked up another 15 or so parking spaces, moved our barriers around in that area. Plus, we talked about Elevation Church striping the gravel on a regular basis so that people could park more appropriately. They've done that as well. So those are the two things that we have outstanding on that.
Perfect. And then the last and final thing, just to mention, I did have a few folks, and I have noticed it before, and maybe it's another topic or offline topic, but just curious in regards to the cleaning services that we have for the recreation center. Do we contract that out to a BSC, like a building service contractor, or do we have someone on staff that does the cleaning down there?
You're talking about for City Rec?
Center, yeah.
I think we had a janitor. I
Okay.
think the janitor, the way I understood it, left. We tried to hire another janitor. I'm looking at staff, but I don't think that janitor showed up today, the first day of employment. That's the way I understand it. That's correct. So we're in the process of hiring another janitor probably.
Well, let me
Less
ask,
than this year.
curious, and again, different discussion maybe, but would it not be cheaper to contract that out for like a building service contractor that comes around, like what we do for this facility, as opposed to having someone on staff doing that? Because we have third party that does
Yeah,
this.
this third party does this good, but I don't know as far as like the cost benefit, this, cleaning service versus employee, I don't really know. I couldn't speak to it unless I looked at what the contract may be compared to what a salary may be. So if you wanted us to look at that, I could do that, but I can't shoot it from the hip right now. I don't really know.
I just, with a contract like that, maybe it is advantageous from a money perspective, but at least we get consistent cleans at the facility.
Check it for it.
Especially, I did, $14.5 million project, we want that thing to look sparkling and clean, right?
Yes, sir.
So, that's all I have.
Just one thing. So baseball is about to kick up for our rec leagues, and a rec baseball coach reached out to me and notified me that there weren't any mounds, pitching mounds on some of these baseball fields. I was just notified that we use temporary mounds, rollaway mounds, and that we only have one, but we've ordered more.
Yes, sir. On that one, we have the temporary roll-around mounds. I think that we use those because we had like a permanent mound. There's like different age groups, so they pitch from different areas to home plate. So in the past, we've used the mobile mounds, I guess. I don't know what they're called, but mobile mounds. And so we had one of those. I spoke with Parks and Rec and Assistant City Manager last week. We've got 2 more ordered as of last Friday, but it'll probably take, I think it's a couple weeks. Was it a couple weeks or a couple months? A couple weeks weeks, 2 or 3 weeks before those new mounds are delivered.
How many fields do we have that need the mounds? Do we know?
Is it 2, they went 3 is back.
Yeah.
Zip, can you come up to the, Zip, come up to the mic.
It was a request to at least get 2 of those, but we could actually use 3.
So how many fields need the rollaway mounds?
It's based on the number of baseball teams that we have, because the smaller age groups don't need it. So we have about 6 baseball teams that will be able to utilize those. So that's why I said we need 3, because you could do a 6 o'clock practice and then you could do a late practice.
Okay. When did we know that we needed more rollaway mounds? Because the season starts Saturday.
We never have in the city had portable mounts. We never have.
Right.
We never have had those. So that would be a great addition.
What were we doing before that? We had regular mounds, right? Like dirt mound that was on the field.
The only dirt mount that we had was at Davis Park about 2 years ago, and then when we redid the field, they were not replaced.
Okay, so
So that's the only one that we did have.
Okay.
That field.
all right. Thank you. That's all.
Jim?
Well, I almost hesitate to bring this up, but I know at our last meeting, we talked about that parking lease agreement for the property in front of the Chronicle, and we said we were going to have that agreement sort of redrafted or another alternative document created. I'm assuming that's coming to us perhaps in April.
It is.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Great. And then I just had some concerns from citizens in a couple areas of the city. I think there were some car break-ins in the Reed neighborhood, and I think that was part of our report from the police last week. So I know they're looking into it, and they've stepped up patrols in the area. And then I also had some concerns about I think a bike theft and somebody pulling on doors of residences on South Main Street in like the South Main Street Seacrest area. And so I think that was reported as well, and I'm sure.
I think I'd like to speak to that just real quick.
Oh, sure.
Our presence is so overwhelming in the Seacrest neighborhood because of some other things we have going on, some other investigations not related to that. That I do feel like that we were told to lay low a little bit and not be back in the area. So I think we've looked into and changed, let's say, some of the people's minds who were new residents down in the apartment complex, who were causing some trouble with some people. I think that we've curved their opinion of how they should act in the neighborhood to the point where some of the residents who were complaining to us said, could we kind of like lay low and not be in the area as much, but we're not planning to do that. So I just want to let you know that.
All right, well, appreciate that. Changing hearts and minds. Appreciate that. And then the only other thing, and I'll leave this more to Richard, I think. I did have occasion with Richard to go out to Reed Park and talk about some improvements that can be made there to the memorial and the bricks from the original building and some commemorative bricks as well, but I'll let Richard speak more to that. That's all I have.
All right, I'll follow up with them. I'll let Catherine go ahead and I'll close out.
I had 2 things. What Charlie spoke on, the same resident contacted me with that, but that's been handled. And then I actually had 3 things. I had another resident wanted me to follow up on the turn-in signal at the Harris Teeter and South Point High School, if we had gotten any further with that with DOT. And I'm not sure.
That would be directed to staff.
What the issue is with the turn signal?
It doesn't turn green,
Yeah, there is a.
so it stays, it caution, so like when pedestrians are crossing, it's just an accident waiting to happen. So I had someone reach back out and just wanted to follow up on that, and I told them I would at least ask
So
to
that's
see it.
oral still?
Yeah.
I'll check with it.
And then the last thing I wanted to ask, the lights at the tennis courts, we discussed this at workshop, I believe, but they do stay on
Davis?
at Davis.
Yeah, yeah.
They stay on continuously, and why was that again?
I don't know, I brought it up in other business because I know some folks that live over there and it's been on late at night and no one has shut it off. Zip, I believe there's a.
I'm sorry, Zip, I know you're so over coming up. I'm so sorry.
Well, they're supposed to be on a timer, so we'll go out there tomorrow and check that out, but it should be going off at about 10 or 11 o'clock.
I haven't heard anything since the last.
Okay,
Right,
okay.
so we have already addressed that.
Yeah, I think you'll have, because the people that, it was Maddie's grandparents and a few other folks, her neighbors were coming at me at that, so, I believe it's been resolved.
Okay.
But Pam Smith, who lives right across the street from that, she's coming out and liaison for that park. She calls me all the time. So,
Good.
So I haven't heard anything
Yeah,
from
you're
her.
on
lately.
speed dial.
Yes, we're on speed dial, so I haven't heard anything, but we'll recheck that again tomorrow, just to make sure.
Perfect. And how late is the park open till?
10.
Till 10 o'clock?
10 o'clock.
Okay. Thank you.
I mean, so,
Okay, Councilman Rumfeld could not be here tonight, so he asked me to read into the record his comments. He's focused on City Hall. I would like to request that staff locate our most recent proposal to renovate City Hall and engage the appropriate parties to update this proposal to include the following. Option A, main floor only. Architectural drawings, renderings, and engineering assessment of interior and exterior spaces to accommodate city council meetings and other appropriate functions. Determine seating capacity, restrooms, ADA compliance, and available parking within reasonable distance. Include assessment for audio-visual equipment upgrades. Option B, entire building, including basement. Include all items under option A, plus activating basement for various uses, including community gatherings, historical artifacts, art displays, etc. And I think that ties into what we requested in that quote initially, that they look into doing some of that. I can't remember who we selected.
That was help.
Helped.
Yes, it was, help, and so I spoke with Kevin, Kraus to determine, what that process looked like previously, and, where we stood with any kind of like construction estimates. From what I understand is that there was an RFQ that was placed August the 26th in 2022, and it was for Belmont City Hall upfits. So the firms had submitted, Help was the awarded firm based on their qualifications. They moved into a draft scope of work, which was December 16th, 2022. And it detailed what exactly would be the scope coming out of that project. There was no fee associated with that scope of work. There was another meeting, I got the meeting minutes of when Help came and had a meeting with staff. They kind of talked through these things. But that's where it ended, as far as I know, is that there was never a full-blown contract for the architectural firm. And so there was no like construction estimates that I'm aware of for any kind of like design moving forward. So if the council wants to direct staff to proceed with something at Old City Hall where we re-engage Help and determine what that fee may be, and then at some point bring that back to you all as far as the fee and then associated construction estimates for any kind of options that you'd like to see at Old City Hall.
I mean,
That's still out there.
I personally would support that. I think we were going to pursue health. I think that what happened there, it stalled, and we didn't move forward with them because of the Stowe proposal. Everything kind of was put in flux at that time, so no need to pursue a quote if City Hall potentially could be moved. I think was the thinking. Would council want to entertain an updated quote from health?
yes,
Yeah.
Definitely.
I think it's safe to say with that, Ms. contract to move city.
I would agree. All right, I'll go through these quickly. I've read Jason's letter. I think you mentioned the watershed and more stricter guidelines to protect the river. I've asked about that myself, and I think we're waiting on Neil Brennan, our P&Z board member, along with Nick Vesley. I think they were tasked with doing some language for that.
Okay.
That is Neil's forte, and I think that's hopefully coming up soon, so we can incorporate that. I would also, again, reiterate, hope we can reach out to NCDOT on Sloan's Ferry Bridge, also known as Soldiers Bridge, and save those markings. Julia Avenue, which Mr. Beck spoke to. I've been called out there multiple times. Several times I've gone out there to meet with Chris. I think we've got to look at that road and really commit to finding a solution for safety on that road. I think what we've got was a good beginning, but I see people going around those rumble strips all the time, speeding down that road. So we have batted this around for 10 years that I'm aware of. Similar to Reed Park, I was the liaison for Park and Rec, and this proposal is a year or two old. And what I would say to council, and even for myself, is we need to pull the trigger on some of these things. Sometimes I feel like we're walking right up to the line and stopping. We're bringing initiatives forward, but sometimes I don't feel like we actually.
Perhaps some clarification as to what this proposal is, for those that might not.
Yeah, this is not a major project. They've got more or less a self-funded memorial there, which consists of a slab with bricks that they've paid for, with the names imprinted on the bricks of the faculty, the staff.
I thought we approved something to proceed forward with about a year or two ago when I first got elected.
I mean, I have a recollection of that too, but I'm not 100% sure.
Jim Beck.
And I know that.
I can't help you on this one, but I'm not saying it, I just don't have a recollection, but
Maybe it was a direction, like
maybe.
other business thing.
I think it was more of a direction, but again, this is something that's been lingering out there. This is not a high dollar request, and if we can fast track it or move it forward, it's one of those things. We've got a very long list, and the low hanging fruit, if we can start checking some of those boxes.
Oh, yeah, for that matter, after we spoke, Mayor, I did speak with staff as far as, I think what we understood was that there was, the brick pavers, memorial pavers, and that, I think that they requested a sidewalk to go around those, pavers. And so, I spoke with staff about, obtaining a quote for the sidewalk, so that folks could get there. And there was also, I think, a sculpture out there, some kind of artwork that needed to be cleaned, and so we looked to, I think it was rust on it, so we're going to, see how we get the rust off, prime it, repaint it, I believe, in the color. It was gray, I think it was a gray color. So we talked about that with staff too. Just recently, today, we talked about, possibly, tying that into, the location for the playground area that burnt, recently, maybe relocate the playground closer to, the brick memorial patio area. And that will allow us to expand the parking lot, the existing parking lot near, the lower ball field. You have that asphalt area, but the play area is kind of right in the way to expand it. And so now is the opportune time to move, the playground area over so we can expand that now. And that was just a conversation we had
That's great.
today. So I think that, Jonathan and Zip are gonna get together. They probably hadn't even done that today, because that just came about. Talked to Jonathan about that. But, yeah, since we're, taking the old playground equipment and disposing of it because of the arson, building the other one in another location. And it's also gonna be closer to that memorial area where we can tie in concrete and that kind of stuff, where, as kids play, you can actually walk through the memorial piece there and allow us to expand more. So,
That's awesome.
yeah, that's nice.
That is awesome.
That's good thinking. We need more parking there, so that's a good idea. Also, they also had requested a possibility, and while we, in the scope of getting the sidewalk around the memorial, they requested a couple of slabs like this, to put park benches this up and poured as well.
We did talk about that, squaring that area up so we can put park benches there. I
Okay.
apologize for not mentioning that.
The only thing I have is, I think next month, if we could begin, everyone here has a committee or a board they're assigned to. Board updates beginning in April as part of other business if we could, so everybody can kind of get up to speed on what's happening, if there's something to report. And with that, I would entertain, we're going into closed session. Okay.
So I will move to go into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A3 to consult with the city attorney and outside counsel in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege and to include outside counsel Pat Flanagan and planning director Tiffany Farrow, with the closed session to occur on the third floor conference room and to include Councilman Rumfeld participating remotely.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.